Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw us some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. And I'm Nile.
And I'm Kyle, and joining us this week as a guest on our show, I haven't been keeping up with the news. Let me preface this real quick. I have not been paying attention to what's going on in the news. But we have gotten, you're not going to believe this, folks, we have Joe Rogan on the show.
Oh my God.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
Now, Kyle, I know you don't keep up with the news.
Yeah.
But you might, if you do check, I know you check Joe Rogan's feed pretty regularly, and you might have seen that it got a little bit smaller on Spotify.
A little bit.
You might have noticed that somewhere along the lines of the entire, like, as many episodes as there are of the hit TV show Columbo have been removed from the feed of Spotify.
Yeah, that's very weird to me. I don't know what's going on there.
A Columbo's worth of Joe Rogan has gone missing. And now there's only one man for this case, and that's Columbo. Columbo, hey, I've got one more thing. One more thing. Hey, Joe Rogan, why'd you say the N-word that many times?
Joe Rogan, what the fuck was up with that? But here's the thing now, and I didn't even tell Niall about this one.
Yeah.
We have another surprise guest.
Oh shit, what?
Go ahead, come on in, Columbo.
The great Peter Falk, hello.
Great Peter Falk, hello. And sorry, one more guest I would like to bring in. You're gonna lose your shit at this one. I mean, you thought Columbo and Joe Rogan was good. Now I'd like to welcome Neil Young.
Oh my God, one of my musical idols. I fucking love the man. It's a
Neil
pleasure
Young.
to meet you.
Cats in the Cradle. That's not Neil Young at all.
That's not Neil Young.
He did
Look, Pono was kind of weird and Storytone wasn't great, but I do like a lot of your work, man.
boys, I'm so happy to be here on this harvest moon.
Man, it's been a while since we had a lot of celebrity guests. I know we used to have back in previous days we would occasionally have Alex Jones on the show.
That's true.
So it's nice to bring this back.
A really good hit count here with Alex Jones and Joe Rogan coming on the show. Disgraced podcaster Joe Rogan.
Billionaire, disgraced in quotes, disgraced,
yeah, sure.
Disgraced in the cool way.
Yeah,
soon to release his autobiography. Triggered.
Yes.
Yeah. No, fuck all of that, except for Neil Young. Neil Young, love you. So
come on the show.
Sorry. Kyle.
Yeah.
I fully intended to do a cryptid episode this week.
Okay.
I keep looking. I feel like we've hit a lot of the big types of cryptid, so I'm always looking on the fringes. I'm looking on the kind of outskirts of cryptidom, trying to find something interesting, and I keep accidentally running into these very strange one-off alien cases.
Yeah.
Like, in the way that I was, like, for a while just so in depth on, like, deep underground military bases, I'm just like, I want to hear the weirdest one-off, probably fake, but very cool alien encounters, such as the Sandown Clown.
Yes.
I've done that.
Oh my God.
This week, I've got a couple more of those for you.
Okay.
And I want to start with a short one just because I think it's really funny. The name is pretty wonderful. So, Kyle, I want to tell you about the crazy critter of Bald Mountain.
I don't think I read. Here's the thing. There's so many adjective noun of adjective place.
Yeah.
With these cryptids, and it's interesting too. Because you're saying this is alien encounter stuff, right?
Yes.
So this is something that I always run across when I look into cryptids. Is like a lot of the cryptid sites will also pull in alien stuff.
That's we might be looking at the same sites because
I think so.
That's where I keep coming across these.
Okay.
There's one that brings me such joy, and we're going to talk about it. It'll be next. I have to build
Isn't
up to it, and I'm not going to tell you the name of it, and you're going to find out in media res.
okay.
Uh,
Isn't you said Bald Mountain?
yes.
Isn't that the thing in Fantasia where the demon is like conducting? Sorry, weird poll, but I think that's like that demon. You know what? You go ahead,
Okay.
and I'll find out if I'm making shit up.
Now, this encounter took place on November 17th, 1974, on Bald Mountain near Chehalis, Washington.
Okay.
Now 3 days earlier, there had been a UFO observation in the same kind of area, but no creature was spotted. But this leads people to believe that the creature that was seen has something or some connection to that UFO.
Okay.
So let's start with the UFO. There was on November 14th, 1974, a fiery object, quote unquote, was seen in the
Oh.
sky crashing to Earth near Bald Mountain in Washington. Now then there was a guy named Ernest Smith who on the 17th witnessed what he really had trouble describing super well because let me just read. This was the description he gave in a 1978 chronicle of the event in the magazine Weird America.
Mm.
The description was as follows: it was horse-sized, covered with scales, and standing on four rubbery legs
Oh.
with suckers like octopus tentacles.
Oh.
Its head was football-shaped with an antenna sticking up.
What? Okay.
Yes. Now there's one other detail that was maybe a little bit interesting to go with this thing. He said, and I quote, "The thing gave off this green iridescent light." So basically, he kind of describes it as a hybrid beast that incorporates elements of insects, reptiles, and cephalopods, while also being bioluminescent.
Huh. Now that's interesting. Now, I got to step in here with two things.
Yes.
One, the final segment of Fantasia is called Night on Bald Mountain / Ave Maria. And that's,
okay.
I guess, the song. So, anyways, I was not making anything up. I'm glad to be
Maybe this
vindicated.
thing factors in that somehow.
Maybe this thing was the thing on Bald Mountain when you were having a night there. The other thing that I wanted to say is this guy saw the main antagonist of Animorphs. Is what this sounds like to me. Like I forget what those guys are called,
I
but
don't
like
remember.
that's what I'm picturing.
I have like a sketch here.
Oh my god, I think I've seen that before.
I've
that's
seen
weird.
this sketch. Like this pops. The problem with this case is there's not a lot of meat on the bone. So
Sure.
I like this has been in. I've basically just like tried to start episodes on a bunch of these things, and I finally said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna put three of
Gotta
them in one
group
episode."
them together, yeah.
Because they're just like these like very pointed sightings. These types of creatures never appear in any other alien sighting. They're never seen again.
Yeah.
It's just like
This is a weird
here is a
unique
thing.
There's like dozens of episodes that I could probably put together if I just start because like I do the exact same thing where like I'll like look for something and find something that's interesting, but there's like one sighting of it in a description and that's all you got. So
yeah, that's why we occasionally just have to do these like kind of group episodes because otherwise like these sightings are so weird and the creatures are interesting and I think they're worth covering, but like it's hard to do a full hour on like literally we're gonna finish this. Like, there's like one more part to this sighting. Ernest Smith saw him while deer hunting, and then there was a second sighting that kind of corroborates the story by a man named Roger Remsbaugh and his unnamed wife, which shouts outs for the wife being unnamed. Hopefully you find the name here in the near future, find something that works for you.
People are really digging into this one.
So they were driving through the Bald Mountain region past dusk on a kind of foggy evening. There's not a specific date given to this sighting. It just is either the same night or very soon after. It's in a very tight time window. According to the report by the same Weird America article, they were driving along State Route 7, which is a near 60-mile stretch between Morton and Tacoma, when they suddenly noticed this kind of dull glow off to the side of the road. They were intrigued, of course. Like, this is not like we're used to a lot of lights now on the road, but I still feel like if you saw like a glowing, like green
In the
kind of
1970s.
bioluminescent light in this 1970s, you'd kind of be
I mean,
curious.
and the light of bioluminescence is gonna be hit different. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
you're not seeing like a fucking floodlight or something.
Right.
This is like a weird thing to come across, especially when you're just like driving through the mountains randomly. So they stop, and they want to get a better look, and they thought it was just going to be some sort of neon sign in the fog. But they then saw the same large, self-illuminated tentacle-bearing monstrosity that Smith had seen just a few days previously. Now, this is when the press started to get more wind of these kind of these encounters, and it was when the thing was christened the crazy critter of Bald Mountain. Um, they basically the press started to kind of write these articles, and it got its name, and it became like a small. It didn't really go like nationwide or anything, but they started to try to piece it together with that like fiery object in the sky a couple
Hmm.
days previous. And while there's no direct connection, they started to kind of maybe think that they had something in common. And as soon as the local paper started to really cover it in depth, the Lewis County sheriff started an investigation. But he was soon visited by heavily armed men that he described as a special NASA team, including a
What,
heavily armored military unit wearing uniforms with no insignia.
a NASA team? Okay.
Some sort of NASA military team that it has no insignias, no markings, just were heavily armed and in like fucking spec ops gear,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seems like. Um, so basically, there is a nearby Air Force base called the McCord Air Force Base. And it seems like, if we are to be believed here, a special ops team from the McCord Air Force Base came in and pretty much put the kibosh on any more research into this creature.
Hmm.
And there has been nothing about it ever since.
That's so wild. I mean, okay, this is the kind of story that you'd think would endure.
Yeah.
This is the kind of story that you'd think that because there's not enough information on any angle
Mhm.
of it, people would be like, this was an alien cover up to this
Yes.
day. Um, is it just because the creature's too absurd to be believed? Like,
I think it like there's an one of the things I think is interesting as I've researched some of these weirder one-off cases is how like the only market that still seems to be investigating these things are podcasts.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
everyone is just like, "Oh, this seems interesting," and like, and everyone is dealing with these same sources, and there's really only like these very small snippets, and uh, like when you're trying to find more information about them, it's hard to find a lot of primary sources or even like articles written about them because everything is just people regurgitating the same like article from
yeah,
some that someone wrote to like set up their podcast, and it's it just is like there isn't a lot to find. It's
yeah.
really weird.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like you'd have to like have the power and money and ability to like go to the location where it happened
Yeah.
and then like dig in there because yeah, at a certain point it just like any more information that you can find on certain stories runs cold.
Mhm.
Um and it's always sad for something like this where the alien I mean, it looks like a giant tentacled praying mantis.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how else to describe it. I mean,
It's a praying mantis horse
yeah,
effectively is what it
yeah.
looks like. It's really
It's
strange.
pretty weird.
It looks like something that you would find in like a sci-fi animated movie, where like Martians come riding on them, and you know they have to make
Yeah.
basically horses. Um, but it's I th- like the creature is so weird. Like everyone just go look up a picture of this thing. It's kind of cool looking. It's like I I wish there was more diversity in the types of aliens that we see
Mhm.
nowadays because I feel like there's been so much that's been canonized. So now everyone just like, oh, I saw the reptilians, I saw the Nordics, I saw the fucking large grays or the small grays, and like I I know that it makes them less believable, but I kind of miss when people just made the most wild alien thing they could come up with based
Yeah.
on nothing.
I have a very distinct memory of being in an Applebee's
Yeah.
and like there was, you know how Applebee's has all that shit up on the
Well, when
walls?
you're there, your family.
Right. And they were like, "Come sit down, son. Why don't we flick on the TV for you?" And they did that. And they were like, how'd you like to have our home cooked meal? And I was like, "I will take the crispy chicken crispers, please."
Mm-hmm.
The like Mama Applebee used to make. And they turned on that TV, and it was on like the History Channel or
Okay.
something. And it was some program about like theorizing what alien life could be like.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all just like weird different shit. There was like they brought up like the like oh, they could look like amoeboid or like, but the one that sticks to me
Mm-hmm.
forever, that because it scared me. I was that young, because I used to be very afraid of aliens. It was it basically looked like a oh fuck, what are they called? The tentacle men of Dungeons and Dragons that
Oh
like
yeah.
sap your brain. I'm drawing a blank at
Not the Beyonder, but the
no,
but,
they're
fucking,
it's like mind leech or something,
yeah.
whatever. People know what I'm talking about. They're illithids, I think is what they're called. So it was like an illithid, but it had like a big robe and like a cloaked cape thing, and it was like standing at its like starship window and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of shit where I was like, man, that's cool, but also as a kid, really terrifying. And it is unfortunate that we don't get much deviation in alien types anymore. We have really set ourselves in on a certain like set of types of aliens.
So Kyle, you said you saw that special on what a bunch of different types of aliens are
Yeah.
could possibly be. Now, did any of them look, I don't know, kind of like Italians? Because do I have a
What?
story for you?
What? No, I don't know.
You provided me with a pretty good segue
Oh my
here, so we're
God.
going to launch into the next story.
Okay, yeah.
That I'm not going to tell you the kind of headline because
Italians?
it's really better if this one kind of unfolds itself naturally.
Okay.
I might have found a new favorite alien encounter, and here let's go.
Okay.
So we're in Wisconsin, in 1961. Now this is possibly Wisconsin's strangest alien encounter, if not one of America's strangest alien encounters. So in 1961, a plumber, auctioneer, and
Mario?
part-time Santa Claus.
Sorry.
No, I mean it was a good joke, but I really have to get to the Santa
Yeah,
Claus part because
yeah.
I feel like that's important.
That is important.
He's an annual Santa Claus for the Eagle River Chamber of Commerce, which is not really important to the story, but I think it's kind of delightful. A man named Joe Simonton had a strange encounter. Now, at about 11 a.m. on April 18th, he was having a late breakfast when he heard what sounded like a jet engine kind of being choked, like when you went like the kind of throttles being pulled back kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he also described it as knobby tires on wet pavement.
Okay, that's
okay. Now he went out to investigate this weird sound that he had heard, and he saw what turned out to be a flying saucer come out of the sky and hover over his farm. He described it as being silver and brighter than chrome. It was approximately 12 feet in height and 30 feet in diameter. There were these exhaust pipes that came out of one edge of it, and then the disc kind of landed and a hatch opened. And inside,
oh my God.
I really hope that this doesn't come. This is if you have any problem with this description, take it up with Joe Simonton, because this is. Inside, there were 3 dark-skinned aliens, each about 5 feet tall and weighing about 125 pounds. They appeared to be between 25 and 30 years old and were dressed in dark blue or black knit uniforms with turtleneck tops and helmet-like caps. They were clean-shaven, and Simonton described them as Italian-looking. So, now these aliens didn't speak. But they were carrying a silvery jug that had 2 handles on it. It seemed to be made of the same kind of chrome-like material as the aircraft. It was about a foot tall, and Simonton described it as a beautiful thing, a thermos jug-like bottle, quite unlike any jug I have ever seen here on Earth. Through some form of telekinesis or suggestion or something, Simonton got the idea that the aliens needed water.
Okay.
So he he took the jug, he went down to the water pump in his basement and returned to the craft and gave the jug back to the aliens.
This is when they tell them it's for their big Italian dinner that they're going to have. Oh my God. What? No.
This is from a report on is from an official Air Force report. This case was investigated by Alan J. Hynek.
No
and we'll
way.
get to there in a second. But this is verbatim from an Air Force report.
Okay.
Looking into the saucer, he saw a man cooking on some kind of flameless cooking appliance. The aliens were preparing pancakes. You might be wondering what this case would be called. Is it called the Pancake Bakers from Space?
What?
It's called the Pancake fucking Bakers from Space.
Fuck? Oh my God, this is amazing. How have we never had this encounter before? We're like,
I name dropped this on an episode like an episode or two ago because I've been like, this has been in the back of my brain for a while, and I've been trying to figure out how to make it a full episode. And I don't think you didn't catch it or you thought I was making some shit up this other episode. But yeah, this is an actual case that was investigated by Project fucking Blue Book.
Well, so they needed water for their cooking, or was it just like they were going to get their drink
cooking.
on for their because like, you know, if you just have like a pancake, it's going to be kind of dry if you don't have something to drink with it. I mean, hopefully they have syrup, but maybe they don't. It's like outer space Italians need to have their water to go with their dry pancakes, or else they need syrup, and they might not have syrup. That's kind of
you'll find out here in a minute.
Oh,
so
Jesus, what? There's more detail about
there's more to this. The interior of the UFO is a dull black, including 3 quote unquote extremely beautiful instrument panels that had the appearance of wrought iron. I don't know why this is in a report, but Simonton is said to have stated that the contrast between the dark interior and the shiny exterior seemed to fascinate him, and he would love to have a room painted in the same way. So, in return for the water, one of the aliens that was doing the cooking, he had red trim on his trousers, which
okay.
We haven't explicitly put a button on this. These aren't like these don't look like aliens. They just look like Italian men.
Yeah.
in an aircraft, in a flying saucer, cooking pancakes on some alien cooktop.
These are cool.
This might just be a fucking George Foreman or something. I don't know. Okay, so once he gave them the water back, in return, one of the aliens who was working the griddle gave Simonton 3 pancakes. And as he did so, the alien touched his own forehead, apparently some sort of salute to Simonton, and Simonton kind of returned the gesture. Each of the pancakes was roughly 3 inches in diameter and was kind of covered in small holes, you know, like the underside of a pancake. You know, you've cooked pancakes before, you know how like the bubbles, it looks like that.
Yeah, okay.
At this point, the alien then connected a line or belt to a hook in his clothing, and the hatch closed. The saucer then rose about 20 feet and took off at a 45-degree angle. Was gone in approximately 2 seconds. It just fucking took off.
This dude got Hynek to investigate a joke about how he needed a more complete breakfast.
This is
wow.
We'll talk about Hynek. I for a long time didn't find I found like the 3-paragraph version of the story everywhere. And I finally found a more complete version that had the full like Air Force investigation and everything. And I was so goddamn
That's
happy.
Amazing.
So Simonton then ate one of the pancakes.
Yeah,
just
of course.
Because he was so curious. He said it tasted like cardboard. Now, the other 2 he saved and gave to the Vias County judge, Frank Carter, who was a local UFO enthusiast.
And pancake lover.
Yes. I throughout doing like researching this episode, I kept thinking of the Joe Pera like pancake breakfast episode.
Oh my God. I want pancakes now. Holy shit. I'm dying for some pancakes.
Yeah. Maybe we need to include a warning at the beginning of this episode that you will crave pancakes in listening to this episode. Now, Carter called the aliens saucer nuts, but Simonton kind of just kept calling them Italians.
Yeah, so these saucer nuts, they showed up and they gave you a disc of food. Yeah, no, the Italians showed up, they gave me a pancakes. I don't know why. Oh shit, I love that. That's amazing.
So Carter's son, today has been asked about this in newspapers. And he says, "I recall as a youngster that my dad took it very seriously. The judge
Ow.
sent pancakes to what was then the country's top investigative group, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, or NICAP. They basically turned him down and said, we don't really want to investigate this. Um, he this kind of threw a wrench in Judge Carter's plans of trying to run seminars on this and like get this into a much more national public scale. Um, and Simonton started to become very kind of annoyed by reporters making fun of the situation and laughing at him.
Well,
Um, Now, they did raise kind of enough of an interest and a stink to get the Air Force to dispatch its civilian UFO investigator, J. Allen Hynek, to investigate
uh,
this case.
poor Dr. Hynek.
Yes, he eventually did take over NICAP, I guess, after working for the Air Force when he kind of started to believe in things more. But Hynek did investigate this case under Air Force purview, and they analyzed one of Simonton's pancakes and found that it was made of flour, sugar, and grease.
Okay. Well,
Now, there's a rumor, and in one of the reports that hasn't been fully released, that the flour type, the wheat that was used in this pancake, was of an unknown origin. But it didn't ever. That's
that's
unconfirmed.
yeah.
However, the official Air Force assessment of it all is that the case is unexplained. And here's where the report kind of goes off. The only serious flaw in the story is the disappearance of the craft in 2 seconds. The rest of the story did not contain any outrageous physical concepts. Simonton answered questions directly, did not contradict himself, insisted on the facts being exactly as he stated, and refused to accept embellishments or modifications. He stated he was sure that we wouldn't believe him, but that he didn't care whether he was believed. He stated simply that this happened and that was that. Um, and this might be where thing. Okay, there's kind of a weird bent to this with the reporting that the Air Force kind of thought that like they didn't want to fully call this a hoax or a fake or whatever because it would cause undue psychological stress on Simonton and it would basically make him a laughing stock. Um, and that's like kind of unconfirmed, seems to be only in like certain reports and stuff that I find. But the Air Force, the whole like it being unexplained by the Air Force might just be a kind of thing of like we don't
We
know
have to
exactly what happened
yeah.
here, so we're just gonna leave it unexplained so we don't just embarrass the fuck out of this guy.
I mean, it's okay. It's like like think about the definition of unidentified flying object. You saw something, yeah, you didn't identify it. It's an unidentified. But then also, the Air Force coming out and saying this is quote unquote unexplained doesn't mean it's not something that was
Yeah.
explainable. That there isn't a good explanation for everything. It's just like we looked into it. We don't know. Whatever.
Yes.
You know that those aliens once they took off just like took off their like transforming devices and turned
Yeah.
back into like grays and they're just
This was
laughing
just
their
a fucking
asses
prank.
off. Yeah, they're laughing their asses off. Imagine he's gonna have to tell them that a bunch of Italians from space gave him pancakes.
Yeah. This out of all the UFO cases we've come across, this might be the one that feels the most like a practical joke
Yeah.
by aliens.
Yes.
Like it is the most just like no one will ever believe you kind of thing, you know?
This is the intergalactic Netflix impractical jokers.
Yeah. It's it
And it's
the-
the same kind of level of humor too, you know?
yeah, some real good stuff where you just have to say like talk about your poop to grandmas and stuff.
Is that what they do?
Sometimes, yeah.
That's funny.
They have to like go places and like do kind of uncomfortable things to people.
Wow,
It's really funny.
that's really funny.
So you might think that that's all that there is to this case, but there is
love to be
another
disappointed.
theory,
Oh,
and this is not a thing that I found a lot of places. I do not know exactly where this theory comes from.
okay.
In full.
You're killing me.
So there is a man
Uh-huh.
who was a publisher of pulp, flying saucer, and science fiction magazines named Raymond Palmer. I believe he might have come up in the show before.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, Palmer reported to the Air Force that his belief was that Simonton had been hypnotized by an Eagle River real estate broker and was fed the pancake story so that he would repeat it and appear truthful. Now,
What?
he claimed that the motivation for this was economic, stating that the purpose was to basically manufacture a reason for a quote unquote miniature Disneyland that is or was being built in the area.
What?
Yes. So, yeah, he might have been hypnotized by a real estate broker to try to get this story out there to generate buzz and tourism to this area so they could build a theme park.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Fine. You know what? I'll give him that one. Yeah, I honestly, here's a simpler one. The guy wanted to get in the paper.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
There's like I don't know enough about Simonton to really make a claim at his character.
Yeah.
But he like there's a button to this at the end that I think is kind of interesting that we'll get to in a minute. That I want to get to just a quick side note about Palmer first.
Mhm.
One of Palmer's favorite theories was that flying saucers came from a Hollow Earth civilization ruled by a race called the Detrimental Robots, which he abbreviated as Deros. Now, Palmer
Okay.
believed that Deros manipulated humanity with their projected thought rays. Now, Palmer's main source from this, or really kind of the only place that this theory came from, was a Pennsylvania welder who drew upon quote unquote racial memory for these accounts.
What does that mean?
You know the phrase ancestral memory?
Like
Where, like,
ancestral recall? Like,
Yeah, like remembering things of your ancestors, like there's like
yeah,
memory baked into your
yeah.
DNA. This goes beyond that and being about the entire human race, like a going into the collective conscious. It's being able to access ancestral memory because you're part like throughout the human race and its
But
history.
racial memory? What,
Yes.
he's able to tap into ancient slurs? Like what? I don't get it. What, like
More
just like
human race
or does
than white
human
race,
race?
you know?
Okay, I'm sorry.
But or maybe it is white. I don't know.
I don't know.
This I might have to look into Raymond Palmer a bit more just because he seems like a fucking wild human being.
I'm hearing some red flags about this guy. That's all I'm
Oh,
really
really?
saying.
You're hearing some red flags? Yeah, so that basically this dude who runs a pulp sci-fi imprint, who believes in a secret detrimental robot run inner earth hollow earth humanity like society, who's getting all this information from his welder friend in Pennsylvania who's able to tap into racial memory to tell him about all this stuff, thinks that the guy that got some pancakes from some Italian looking aliens had that whole story implanted in him by a real estate broker through hypnosis so that he could maybe get a small scale Disneyland made in Wisconsin.
Now, when you put it that way, you certainly make it sound ridiculous.
It sounds like the most ridiculous fucking like hijinks filled like Coen brothers movie of all time, where it's a bunch of people who are like not super good at what they do but think they're really smart trying to pull these complicated crimes. It really comes off as like a fucking Coen brothers hijinks.
Yeah, what if Burn After Reading was about a bunch of like UFO conspiracy theorists?
Yeah, it's just the through line of that whole like explanation of this whole theory brought me such joy to put together, because it's rare that you get those kinds of connections in doing this podcast anymore that are just like, this is the most fucking wild bullshit sentence that I will ever say, and I'm joyful that I get to be the one to bring this up.
You know, every once in a while you just really sit back and appreciate the kind of shit you get to read about with this show. Stuff like that. You're just like, my God, that's crazy. I love that. That's wow. Incredible.
So yeah, the more likely explanation is basically that you know, he either hallucinated or just like made this up, and the Air Force was like, we don't want to cause this guy a bunch of trouble for some reason.
He's clearly unstable. Like, we can't like fucking push him over the edge by making him the town laughing stock.
Yeah, but now in 1970, Simonton was visited by a man named Lee Alexander, who was a UFO enthusiast and investigator based out of Detroit. And Simonton, he basically was just checking up on Simonton and seeing if he had anything else to say about the stuff, if there's anything else. And Simonton claimed that he had had more visits from aliens, like from the same aliens,
Oh shit.
but he hadn't told anybody because of the way his first report was received.
Sure, the Italians came back though.
Yeah.
What did
This
they-
time we're making bigger
Spaghetti
pancakes.
dinner.
Yeah. It's like so I think this is the first intergalactic food truck. I think that that's a fair claim to make.
Honestly, that I really like that idea. But it's like a food truck that just like goes to impoverished planets and fucking gives them the
Throws out some
shittiest
pancakes,
pancake
yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I just the phrase pancake bakers from space brought me such joy.
That's amazing.
I've got one more story for
Okay.
you. And
me
this
have it.
one I'm going to start with the headline because I think it's fun. Kyle, we're going to talk about the giant space brains of Palos Verdes.
Space brains.
Giant space
Oh,
brains.
this sounds. Where did you fucking find these? These are awesome. Holy shit! And this has to. I mean, is this another '60s case?
1971.
Okay, like around there.
We're operating in the
I'm
60s
just-
to early mid 70s.
Yeah, the
here.
60s to 70s is like, I feel like that's the only place where you find this kind of shit.
It was before the canon had been so rigidly established.
Yeah.
And even this, there is a weird kind of connection to a case that you actually talked about
Oh.
that we'll get to in a little bit here, and which I thought was interesting. And oddly enough, also about Italians. But it's so that's maybe the through line of this episode.
This episode's for you, Italy.
All right. So in 1971, on August 17th, a pair of Palos Verdes residents named Peter Rodriguez and John Hodges, who were in their late 20s, claimed to have come across two presumably alien creatures. It was approximately 2 a.m. They had left the home of a mutual friend who lived nearby on a road called Dapple Gray Lane. Only really relevant because they reference it throughout the story, and
And
it's
gray.
It sets kind of the
Gray matter.
Sure. And so they got in the car and headed out. As soon as Hodges started the engine and flicked on the headlights and was about to drive off, they noticed a pair of what they could only really describe as large, disembodied brains lying about 6 feet in front of them in the middle of the road. Now,
They're like lying on the ground?
Yes.
Because I'm kind of picturing like a floating thing.
we'll get there.
Okay.
So they were, of course, kind of confused by this and maybe even a little bit frightened. Like, this is not a thing you would normally see. And they kind of just sped away from the beings. Now, the men lived really close nearby. It normally takes about 10 minutes to get from Dapple Gray Lane to their house. Or at least, I don't think they live together. I think they just live very close together. So it takes about 10 minutes to get from their friend's house back to where they live. Hodges first drops off Rodriguez and then made his way home. Now, once he arrived at his house, he realized that it was 4:30 a.m. Now, this supposed 10-minute drive took 2 hours.
Yeah.
2.5 hours.
Missing some time there.
And he was very confused by this, kind of frustrated, and really couldn't figure out what had happened. And he didn't immediately know what to do with this. Literally, like, this just plagued him for quite some time. 5 years later, in 1976, he is so frustrated by this that he comes across the idea of hypnotic regression, and he undergoes hypnotic regression to try to figure out what happened in that missing 2.5 hours. And I believe that maybe both of them eventually underwent hypnotic regression, but Hodges is kind of the main one that gets cited here. And basically, he recounted that he had dropped Rodriguez off without incident and then returned home. Upon his arrival, he was terrified by the sight of two big blue brains waiting for him outside his house. Now, here he seems to have lost consciousness because the next thing he remembers was waking up in what he referred to as a quote-unquote control room. This room was lined with what seemed to be computer consoles, and the brain creatures were nearby alongside other creatures that were even more kind of scary. He said under hypnosis that the group of creatures were bald, thin-lipped, 7 foot tall, gray-skinned humanoid with no less than 6 webbed fingers and
Oh
toes.
God. Okay.
The humanoids then told him that the blue brains were basically organic translation devices that allowed them to converse telepathically with humans. They then showed Hodges a series of holographic images depicting nuclear explosions and basically on like an alien TV, you know?
Oh, sure.
And the larger brain explained to Hodges that these points on this screen that were then shown to him were represent places on Earth where there were quote unquote too much power. He was also shown images of another planet that had been destroyed due to the same faults. Basically, these creatures were giving the same kind of warning that the place that I was doing research here were citing as like the exact same warning that was given at the Ariel school incident that I talked about like a long time ago.
Oh.
I think that was in Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
but we're basically talking about the like nuclear annihilation kind of stuff
Yes. Yeah.
here. And they proceeded to caution Hodges that the human race needs to immediately stop abusing its power or suffer the consequences. They stated here's a direct quote supposedly from the aliens by way of the floating brain organic
Yes.
translators. Take the time to understand yourselves. The time draws near when you shall need to. Now, whether this was some kind of warning or kind of a like
Suggestion.
a suggestion or a plea,
Work
or a
on
plea even
yourselves.
like you could see this either as threatening or like, come on guys, you got to get it together. Like you can see this as trying to help us or really fucking threatening us.
Yeah.
And Hodges couldn't really quite get the exact tone of this. And so
Sure.
it's kind of unknown.
How's that going to come through in a psychic transmission, you know?
Yep. Now, as soon as the aliens were done kind of giving him these messages, whether it's, aggressive or helpful, Hodges claimed that he felt felt like a buzzing sensation go through his body, and he opened his eyes to find himself back in the car. However, this time the brains were no longer there, and they then after they both underwent regression, the two guys were asked to draw pictures of these brains. Hodges depicted the larger brain with this red eye that was like the size of it was like a couple feet, like it was big. And the other one was more just like of a straight up brain that was like about a softball size.
Imagine having to lug that thing around planet to planet
Yeah.
just so you can talk to people.
Yeah, it's strange. Like I don't know why one is so big and has this like red eye, and the other one is just like it's just kind of a big. It's just kind of like a pretty big
really
brain.
Big brain.
I think it's bigger than a softball. I think that was the wrong. They likened it to some sort of ball, and I honestly forget which one it was, but smaller. It wasn't nearly as big as the other one. Yeah. So this is such a fucking weird. I've never seen a the floating brain thing before.
No.
Outside of people that talk about this case, the places that it still gets talked about, liken it to that episode of Futurama, where the brains come in and everything, and there's that whole subplot with Fry being so dumb that he somehow can't be mind controlled. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the era where people were willing to, talk about alien experiences that they claim to have.
Yeah.
As if it were a B sci-fi movie.
Which, keep that in mind, because there's an interesting note about B sci-fi stuff. There's a little bit more to this encounter. So he noted that he thought that the ETs had implanted what he referred to as a translator cell in his brain in order to keep contact with him. And the whole thing in the ship might have been through a holographic projection, he said. Unnoted exactly why.
What? Yeah, I was going to say, to what end?
I don't know. Now, he still claimed that in the weeks that followed, he received various other telepathic messages from the beings. They predicted that in 1983, a war would break out in the Middle East. They then said the war would swiftly spread into Europe and result in like nuclear warfare.
Mm.
And following that whole kind of nuclear arms race, attack, war, everything, the aliens would then start to come out publicly and speak with the human race. And that would be kind of when they become public. Now, of course, that didn't happen
Right.
in 1983.
Right.
Like, we didn't have nuclear warfare at that point. So was this some weird warning
We
that we
prevented
somehow forestalled, or
Yeah.
was it just maybe this guy was drunk or something? I don't know.
Can you imagine that? Like, I mean, there's been like all this news of aliens in the media, and like, what was it like? I think there was this whole thing about theologians were being hired
By NASA. Yeah.
NASA to like be like, how do we handle telling the religious people on Earth that aliens exist?
Mhm.
What if it's just like, these guys show up with their fucking brains and we get the messages all being like they're shaking
Mhm.
hands with Papa Joe Biden and like they're looking in and psychically messaging all of us and they're just like, you guys did a great job in 1981.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
getting kind of fucky over here. So we
You guys-
decided to step in.
We didn't have to come when we thought we would. You did better. You kind of performed honestly better than we assumed you would, and there was no nuclear warfare in the mid 1980s.
Yeah.
So at this point, we just figured it was time to come out because it seemed like maybe we made these guys seem like they made up a story about meeting us, and we wanted to like maybe keep them from becoming public laughingstocks. So we decided to come out and say hi and show off our brain organic and whatever telepathic devices. I
How
don't
fucking awesome would it be to force Joe Biden to confront a giant brain?
Might be the
Do you
first
think-
time he's ever seen a brain
Yeah,
like
do you
that.
think his dementia would take over at that point? Like he just like completely lose touch with reality?
I do think that he would have some trouble dealing with the now I think that there is something to be stated about like alien like disclosure and its effect on people. But I honestly, the person I'm most afraid for is Joe Biden. I don't think he
Yeah.
would handle
No.
aliens well.
No, I mean, good news is he's got his diaper on, so
Yeah.
that's covered. But yeah, I think mentally that would be tough for him. I've been dealing with this whole thing with like with the bonus show that I've been doing
Yeah.
about this like idea that like aliens that have developed like intergalactic travel must necessarily be like a socialist utopian society,
Uh-huh.
Star Trek shit. And maybe there's also something totally off with the idea of like, oh, the aliens are gonna meet with fucking Joe Biden, like maybe one of the most feckless Democratic presidents of all time, and that maybe what they'll do is they'll show up and they'll meet with unions.
Yeah, maybe
be
they'll
kinda
show
fun.
up and meet with like the Teamsters.
Yeah,
And they'll get driven out
Yeah.
of Chicago
yeah, that'd be kind of cool
because they try to
Fun.
plug their translator into an outlet, and then
Yeah.
the Teamster comes out and is like, you have to have 2 union guys to do that. Like, yeah, it would be yeah. So here's just some fun little postscripts to this whole thing.
Yeah.
The aliens, not the brains, but the ones that were actually in the ship, to a lot of people bear a resemblance to the Zanfretta aliens,
Yeah.
which is the case that I was talking about that you did. That was episode 229.
Trying to remember the description of the Zanfretta
They were kind of like
aliens.
Creature of the Black Lagoon in the pictures.
Yeah.
But like the webbed hands and the gray,
Yes.
tight-lipped kind of thing. That's the stuff that people kind of think is in line
These
here.
guys, what I really like about these guys is they are like just unique enough to be grays with like they're like cool gray variants.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I opened the variant pack.
I got the holofoil gray.
The
has
holofoil web
fingers.
finger gray. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah, that was a case that took place in 1978. So this was 7 years earlier. Now other people just think the telepathic aliens seem kind of like grays of some kind, which is, that's fine. I prefer a little bit more uniqueness in my alien types in these cases because maybe sometime after 1971 the grays were able to stop using organic translation by way of big brains and instead have some sort of like little like I keep wanting to say like the size of an iPod, but like then like they're using just like an iPod to
iPod
translate.
Nano.
Yeah, like they were able to create some sort of smaller device that kept they were able to
Yeah.
retire the giant
Do
brains.
people know what iPod Nanos are anymore? Like
I don't know.
iPods? Is that like just faded from cultural consciousness? Is it gone?
I feel like people watch Community and that they at least got the gag
Oh
of
yeah.
like Verdes using a used iPod Nano that was like a running gag, you know.
Yeah.
So even if it's like not thought of a lot, I feel like it still kind of exists in the cultural consciousness.
You and I both, I think we clung to those things for so
I had
long
an iPod
after the fact.
Classic that I still own.
I still have my iPod Classic somewhere as well. I don't think it works, but
Mine
I
just
mean, it
needs to be
might.
charged,
Mine
but
would
it
probably
does
need to be
work.
charged. Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
that's
like
the
that thing.
secret to tapping into communication with aliens is like we let those iPods sit long enough and the psychic energies got absorbed in them. And I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm saying. I'm just kind of coming up with a conspiracy sort of idea here.
Yeah, I think
Um,
honestly the way to talk to aliens is somehow if you play Mersbo tracks enough,
yeah.
they speak through kind of it's kind of like how you
Oh,
communicate with
backmasking.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, backmasking and like spirit box type stuff,
Yeah.
but
You can
aliens
play through
use
the
like
noise
noise
of
music.
Mersbo.
Yeah. I think that's how that works.
That is a joke for some specific. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So there's kind of a thing here pop culturally that is interesting. There was a book published years before this encounter called The Brain from Planet Eros. And these brains are very close in kind of description as to what Rodriguez and Hodges described. So a lot of people think that this was kind of a hoax based on this kind of pulp sci-fi novel.
Yeah.
Actually, I really should have looked to see if it was published by Raymond Palmer, just see if I could like tie this
Connect
together
everything.
even
Well,
neater.
it's funny. There's a
Um,
lot of these, especially weird cases that are like, hey, a few years previously, like there is like a sci-fi book that was this entire thing, and you'd think people would like realize not to do that. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I guess it's like the 1970s, so people are just like, "Pff,
Yeah,
I can
'cause-
just do this, and nobody's gonna. I'm the only one who knows about this book. What are they gonna do? Google it?
Yeah, because V.S. Boas had the same thing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these cases that are now, like some of these still persist, some of them don't. But there are a lot of times where it's like, this kind of seems like the plot of a
Yeah.
book I read one time.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, this book was published 4 years earlier and and it was pretty, available for a dime and everywhere. And so people just didn't think anyone would notice.
Yeah, I mean, I think even like Chariots of the Gods and like Ancient
Mhm.
Aliens stuff, there were like sci-fi books about that idea before, and they probably, I mean, there's just so much of that era that like 20 to 30 years of sci-fi was just people like reading sci-fi and being like, I wonder if people are going to believe me if I say that this actually happened.
They all just remind me of that Letterbox Joker review that was just it was like 4.5 stars. This happened to my friend Eric.
What is the thing is like
Yeah.
you said the pancake one that was like also from a sci-fi
No,
novel
no.
sort of
The
thingy?
the sci-fi publisher is the one that thought that he was
right.
that he was implanted with the idea through hypnosis.
Right. Okay. So I was gonna say the pancake space Italians is so weird and unique that could not have possibly been the subject of a sci-fi novel
Hey,
from back then.
If someone
But-
finds a sci-fi novel
About that?
about an alien food truck run by space Italians making pancakes,
Please.
send it my way.
Yeah.
Because that
we'll open up a PO box for that specifically.
yeah. So yeah, those are the three just weird one-off
Yeah.
alien encounters that I
Love
found that I want to talk about this week. I guess the through line is Italians and pulp sci-fi, but
Amazing. That's a great nugget to have at your core of your alien stories.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
so I guess that'll
Incredible.
bring us to the big question.
Yeah, lay it on me.
Now, Kyle, you seemed
could
maybe a
do-
little more excited about the prospect. Now, your response to something earlier makes me think that you might have a bit different reaction to this than I did.
Okay.
So we'll see how this goes. But my big question is, what kind of alien food truck would you be willing to actually eat from if it were to come down from the sky?
I mean,
Like, what would have to be on that menu? What kind of alien food truck nonsense would be most enticing to you?
that's tough. I think like, okay, like I could like crack jokes about like, oh, they got a food truck and it's all chicken parmesan.
Yeah.
It's like, that's amazing. I mean, that's like one of my favorite combination things. Chicken and spaghetti. Oh, fuck. That's amazing. There's cheese too. That's all great. I think though that I need to give this like an alien spin.
Yeah, that's because like I always think there was a big trend in food trucks that like I know this is cheesy, but it's something that I do like. I love a good like Asian fusion
Yeah.
kind of thing where it's just like, oh, we're gonna fucking fuse like General Tso's onto like a fucking taco or what. So I feel like you could do like an Asian fusion with like their local alien cuisine.
Yeah.
That I think you might be able to get me with some like fucking wild ass like fucking like scallion pancake wrapped
Ooh.
critter from their home planet
Yeah.
with like a nice like sticky sauce, you know?
Yeah.
I think you might be able to get me to fuck with that.
You're making me hungry and it's a food
I
that
know.
doesn't exist.
Where
you know-
this episode is purely to make you hungry.
Oh my God. I'm going to have to like make multiple stops. I'm going to pick up some pancakes somewhere. Going to get a chicken parm.
Yeah.
I
Hey, you did that one to yourself.
I know, I did. I am sorry. When I think of like chicken parmesan is just like that food that's
Wait.
like what?
So whenever food gets brought up, you kind of just go straight to chicken parmesan because I know it's a thing that you
Well,
hold near and dear to your heart.
You know, and I've made chicken parmesan a lot. Especially like during quarantine, I
Yeah.
just would like make chicken parmesan, and it's so good. And it's, you know how people have like comfort movies that they'll be
Mhm.
like, I could pop this on anytime. That's me with chicken parmesan. I can
You
pop
pop
that
that
in
movie
my mouth.
on anytime.
I can pop that in my mouth anytime. But here's my answer. Here's my actual answer. This is what I would want from an alien food truck. I would want crispy, oh so crispy chicken wings or whatever kind of wings that they have from their planet.
Yeah.
And I would want to sample whatever unique alien sauce on those wings.
I do think you could get whatever their like regional like fruits and peppers could make some
Yes.
interesting sauces.
Yes.
I think an alien fucking fusion chicken wing truck
sauce
could actually roll. I think that's a very good
it
idea.
just sounds so fucking good to me. I swear to God, this was an actual plot of something. I was watching something. What the hell was I watching? I watched something last year. It was animated, and it was about an episode was about
Space Dandy?
no.
Okay.
It was I want to say it was an American cartoon that involved a little. It might have been Adventure Time.
Okay.
It might have been Adventure Time. I think I watched an Adventure Time episode where there's like a little lady creature thing that runs a food truck in space.
Interesting. Okay.
So,
Because like I went straight to fucking the comic Chew,
oh sure,
remember that
Yeah, yeah, I do.
where it
remember
turns
Chew.
out the like weird chicken substitute is actually from like a space, like a plant that came from space
Yeah.
that tastes like chicken but gives you like some weird alien hallucinations or some shit. I forget exactly. It's been a while since I've read it, but that was where my brain went. But yeah, I have not seen that at Adventure Time. I only ever watched like very early Adventure Time before I completely fell off of that show, but I
Yeah.
do think it's fun.
It
I like
goes it goes some places to the point where like I had to really rack my brain and be like, do they go into space in Adventure Time? And it was like, yeah, they
Probably.
fucking do. And there's like
Do they ever get into do they ever do the Ghost to Hell arc that a lot of things do eventually?
oh man, maybe I don't remember. But anyways, point is, I think a space food truck would be delightful.
Mhm.
And now I would literally strangle another human being to death with my bare hands for a basket of delicious chicken wings right now.
Okay, I'm gonna end this episode real quick before Kyle's got murder in his
I'm
eyes.
sorry, murder and hunger in my gut.
So I'm gonna go ahead and take care of some business and get the
Yeah,
fuck out of here
let's do
before
it.
he gets feral. So if you want to find more of our show, you can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers from Stitcher to Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify, where we didn't have to remove 70 episodes for saying the N-word.
Yet.
Yeah. I mean,
No, I'm just
we'd
kidding.
have to start soon.
Just kidding. Oh, right, me. itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Email us to your favorite food.
Yeah.
Just like email us about your favorite food. That's kind of like the vibe I'm in right now. I'd love to know what listeners are into vis-a-vis food choices. You can literally hear me salivating.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So yeah, and send us the emails too, because then that will give me something to chew on. Um, Patreon.com/it gets weird. Check it out. $2 tier and a $5 tier. If you donate to the $2 tier, you get a bonus episode every other week. We're watching Gravity Falls or It Gets Weird TV show. If you donate at the $5 tier, you get access to that show plus the show on the off weeks from It Gets Weird TV. So you get a bonus episode every single week. Whether or not you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to our main episodes 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday. You get access to our Discord, which is popping off. And you get the satisfaction of donating to your favorite podcast. And then, of course, we have a $1 tier that's just a tip. It's like, hey, I like what you're doing. And you just kick us $1 every month. You don't get anything out of it. You're just, saying, hey, I like your show. If you can't donate to us, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird.
Yeah. Still working on trying to convince Kyle to do that $250 a month nudes tier that he refuses to do.
We'll talk.
Thank you all for listening. This has been It Gets Weird. I've been Nile.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.
Peace.